Paige, you gonna test it, make sure it's up? Looks like we're good to go. Okay, Rudy, I think you can start. Let's start it over again.
All right. So we'll call the meeting to order at 6:03.
Okay, Rudy, I think you can start. Let's start it over again. What the heck?
All right. So we'll call the meeting to order at 6:03.
Okay, Rudy. Okay, I needed to close that. I'm really sorry.
Christina, can you do a roll call, please, for me? Because you can see who's all on there.
Yes, I will. Yes, I will. Oh my God. I have that feedback. Hold on. I don't know if I can close this or not. There we go. I'm gonna close that window. Okay, I think I'm rolling. I'm gonna double check it one more time.
Says live.
Yes, okay. Okay. Says it's live, we're good to go. I can start with the roll call.
Yes, please.
Okay, Mayor Patch,
Here.
Councilor Goulet,
Here.
Councilor Moore,
Here.
Councilor Kolb.
Here.
Perfect. Others on the call today, besides myself, we have Liquor Store Manager Sean Delar.
Here.
Thank you. Police Chief Jace Grandguth.
Here.
Public Works Supervisor Mike Schwanke.
Here.
City Attorney Joe Boyle.
Here.
And our City Auditor Ashley Erickson.
Here.
Did I miss anybody? All right. I think you're ready to, I think you can roll the rest of it now.
All right. If no one objects, I would like to just dispense with the Pledge of Allegiance. Otherwise, we can say it. Do I have any objections? Do I have any objections? Hearing none, let's proceed. Go ahead, Max.
No.
Okay. Hearing none, we'll move on to approving the agenda. So I'll need a motion for that.
Paige, I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion on the agenda? All those in favor signify by saying aye and say your name and aye. Rudy, aye.
Paige, aye.
Max,
Jason,
aye.
Jason, aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Okay, I need a motion to approve the consent agenda unless a counselor wishes to remove an item to be discussed.
Paige, I'll make that motion.
I just have a motion right now, right?
Jason, I'll second the motion.
Any discussion on the consent agenda? Any discussion on the consent agenda? All those in favor say aye. Rudy, aye.
Paige, aye.
Max, aye.
Jason, aye.
Okay, any opposed? Signify by saying aye. Hearing none, motion passes. Christina, anything for the Blackduck Forum?
No, Rudy, you have no one here to speak on behalf of the Blackduck Forum tonight.
Okay. So let's have, can we do the report from Joe Boyle?
Yes. I guess I would first ask if the counselors were able to pull up his letter. If not, I will pull it on the screen as it was a different format than normal. I would then assume that everyone is able to read it, and I would turn the point over to Joe to speak.
Thank you, Christina. As you know, I'm Joseph Boyle. I'm the attorney for the city of Blackduck. There was an unnamed citizen who requested an investigation, and the investigation was brought by the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. And when they finished with their investigation, they made a determination, a finding that there was no criminal activity, and there was, with the limited information provided, they don't have anything to look into as far as such criminal activity. As a result, when an investigation is started and when an investigation is finished, it's public data. And so I sent the letter so that everyone would know, as a matter of public data, that there was an investigation and it was concluded and there was no finding. As the city attorney, it is my responsibility to make sure that if there is a complaint, that such complaint is dealt with in whatever the appropriate manner is based upon the complaint. And we have to make sure, my job is to make sure that I advise the proper people to follow through with the compliance of the ordinances and the state laws. In this case, it was concluded by the BCA and there was no activity, and it's a matter of public data, so that's the reason we're discussing it. Does anyone have any questions?
It says unnamed citizen. I thought there was someone. I thought that was a different packet.
The from the actual document that we got as to the report, the BCA person stated an unnamed citizen. And so I myself have not talked to the unnamed citizen. And if that person wanted to be unnamed, that person has a right to not have his name disclosed. Somebody could do their own investigation of trying to figure it out, but that wouldn't be my job or their job. If that citizen wants to come forward and say, I'm the one that was doing it, that's fine. But I am not in a position to question the fact that when he gave it to Christina, he referred to it being an unnamed citizen with the name crossed out. He had 5 X's emailed me and indicated.
Does anybody else have any questions for Joe?
I don't have anything. Thank you.
Thank you for doing that, Joe.
Well, thank you. And I appreciate helping the council and helping Christine. And And I hope you have a nice, happy meeting and get a lot of public business done. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Bye. Yep. Yep.
All right, moving on to the financial audit, Christina.
Yep, I will turn it over to Ashley at this point. Ashley, like you and I talked, I'll try to share my screen as best as I can. And I already sent you the packet, so if you want to start, I'll open the letter.
Okay,
And I think I'm going right.
hold on 1 second, I'm sorry.
Yep, that's okay.
Just give me 30 seconds.
No worries.
Sorry about that. I'm Ashley Eastridge from Miller McDonald. We did, I'm just gonna go over the governance letter that we send out every year. It just kind of recaps all the important information that the council members need to know about. Sorry, I can't see what you have pulled up. That's okay. So there were important aspects to know is that we didn't encounter any difficulties during the audit with management. There were corrected misstatements. There were no uncorrected misstatements. So what that means is when we come in and we audit and we propose audit entries to Christina, she has to review and approve them. And so that's on attachment A, which is the very last page of this document, or last 2 pages, I should say. And I tried to break out by fund what those material adjustments are. So when we audit, we have different levels of materiality. So if we were not to make these entries, then you wouldn't have a clean opinion. But since these entries were made, obviously you have a clean opinion. So this breaks it down by fund or opinion unit. And I try to give a brief description in the effect on the financial statements. So that's what the attachment A is, the last 2 pages of that document.
Oops. Oopsie. Sorry. I didn't mean to do that.
I'll wait.
Yep, thank you. Because I just lost my whole agenda. Shoot. Sorry, everybody. I'm gonna do it like this. Okay. Okay, Ashley, this is attached, your attachment A's.
Yep.
Okay, do you need to speak on those anymore?
Nope. And then I was just gonna, you can go back up a little bit to the letter.
Okay.
There were no, there's a section called other audit findings and issues. There's nothing that we came across in our audit that would need to be, need to be notified about that. We didn't have any issues. And that's the highlights of the governance letter. It's very similar to what you've received in the past. We had no current year issues that you need to be aware of. Everything went very smoothly. Okay, is the next the financial statements, Christina?
It is.
Okay.
Oh, nope, it's the 5-year. Do you want me to jump to the?
Well, I guess it's up to the council, I guess, because the supplement kind of goes in tandem with the financial statements. So I can do it, I can explain the supplement and go through it. And then when we go through the financials, it might be a little bit redundant, but it might make it easier to show on screen.
Okay, yeah, it's a little difficult for me to put them both up at the
Okay.
same time.
Okay, so I will explain the 5-year trend, the supplement packet that I have, and then we'll go through the financial statements if everyone's okay with that. Okay, so what I did, I believe we gave you this last year as well. It's on the very first page, the cash by fund page shows the top 3 governmental funds and the top 3 enterprise funds, the business type funds, their cash balances for the last 5 years. And then it shows a graph of each fund, of each one of those funds and their trends. And then total cash as a whole, the trend for that. So overall, your trend with cash has went up over the 5 years. There's a slight decline this year. And we'll get more specific, especially into the general fund and the 2 funds that went down that are on this page. We'll get more detail in the next couple pages on that. Okay, so I'll go to the next page, the general fund. So this is just summarizing the cash and the revenue and the expenditures for the last 5 years. So overall revenues it was pretty flat, but it has a slight increase. The expenditures went up significantly and the cash went down a little bit this year. And that was mainly due to the new squad vehicle that was purchased. That was around 50-some thousand or whatever. So that caused a swing comparatively, a swing in the expenditures and caused your cash to decrease. But it's not a consistent reoccurring event, so that you'll just see swings like that when you have to replace equipment. And then the next page is, and if I'm going too fast or if you have questions, please let me know. The next page is the water fund. So overall, the cash is increasing steadily. The operating charges and the operating costs remain fairly flat. The big swings in the non-operating revenue is related to the PFA grant money. So you had a spike for a couple of years because you had many expenditures related to that. And the project was completed or pretty much completed. So that's why the revenue had such a downswing. The non-operating revenue had such a downswing. And that's just because of the PFA grant money. So overall, everything seems fairly consistent with the water fund. The next page is the sewer fund. There was a dip in cash this year. And part of that was the early payback for I forget what.
It was the microloan we used on the sewer side for the project.
Yeah, so that was almost $100,000. So that, you received proceeds and then paid back a bunch of it. So that's why there's a big swing in cash that way. Operating charges have been relatively flat. Operating costs had a decrease this year, but that was mainly due to depreciation, which is it's not like a cash expenditure, but it's something that is in operating costs. But if you take that out, I'm just flipping to my financial statements for a second because I wrote it down. But if you take depreciation out of the costs, operating costs went up about 12 grand, which was mainly due to utilities. And I believe that there was there was some runoff issue or something like that, that caused the utilities to be increased this year, which it was known. So there was nothing concerning there. But that's just why the operating costs went. If you take depreciation out, they just went up slightly. The non-operating revenue is related to the deed grant revenue, which is related to the project costs. So there's nothing concerning about that. The next fund is the golf course. And obviously you're aware of the situation with the golf course, and there's a downward trend with cash again this year. The operating charges are on a slow decline, nothing too awful. Maybe it's just it's starting to plateau out, but the operating costs increased this year, and that was mainly due to the payroll costs. So that was a known by the council, but that's just that was the reason why the operating costs were up so high. And everything else seems fairly consistent. The next page is for the liquor store.
I had a question on the golf course.
Okay, yep, well, I'll go back. And I have the financials open too, because I have a little bit more detail on that. So go ahead, whatever you got.
My question is, what falls under the operating expenses?
Okay,
Or operating expenses?
okay, so operating
I
expenses.
mean, like an example.
Like an example, okay, so it's all the payroll costs, utilities, supplies, excuse me, supplies and materials, repairs and maintenance, insurance, depreciation, any contracted services you had to do. On page 90 of the financial statements, it gives you it'll break it down into subcategory or like categories underneath the operating expenses, so that you can see more detailed as to how those figures are made up.
Ashley, if you want, I can make a note when we get to the statement. We can elaborate on that a little bit for Max.
Yep, sounds good.
Okay. Is that okay for you, Max? Okay.
Okay. Okay, so then we'll go to the liquor store for right now. Overall, the operating costs and the cost of goods sold they have the upward trend, which is good, but they're maintained. So that gap in between the operating charges and the cost of goods sold, that's your gross profit percentage. So you're maintaining that nice gross profit percentage. Everything is in correlation with each other. You have an upward trend in sales, which is great. Your operating costs are fairly flat, and your cash actually went up this year, so that's good, even though you made that extra transfer for the golf course. So that's great news. So nothing concerning or anything that really stands out in the liquor store. And then the last page on this document is it just lists the general fund and the other governmental funds, and then all four of the enterprise funds, the business type funds, and it shows the unrestricted fund balance or net position and the operating expenditures, and then it compares how much you have in fund balance, how many months of fund balance you have to cover operating expenses. So it tells you how much you have, like, pretty much in reserves to pay your operations. And the state auditor recommends 3 to 5 months. So all of the categories are very good. except obviously the golf course, but you're fully aware of that situation. We also have, and when I say unrestricted fund balance, I'm including any committed fund balance or assigned fund balance so it's not, when I mean unrestricted, it's not restricted by outside sources. It might be internally restricted by the council, but that restriction can always be removed. So that's what that unrestricted means. So if you're looking at the financial statements and comparing you'll have to include the assigned, committed, and unrestricted to get those figures, just so you know. And then at the bottom there, it lists the 5 top unrestricted fund balances. So you have the revolving loan fund. That's the loan fund that is the unrestricted portion. When you did that, the one-time exemption or whatever last year, this is the fund balance that you have at the end of 19 for that pool of money, if that makes sense. And on the financial statements, we lump the unrestricted portion and the restricted portion together, but they have different fund balances on the statement. Then they have the fire hall maintenance fund, the sewer maintenance fund, water sinking fund, and the perpetual care fund. So that lists that. The only thing that I would ever recommend or have you guys consider is that, like, the sewer maintenance fund and the water sinking fund, and I think there's like a public works fund that's also not listed on here, but it's in the financial statements. It seems that the city is using those funds for future projects or equipment, but if that's money, at least for financial statement purposes, if that's like, so the sewer maintenance fund, if that's really for the sewer fund, for financial statement purposes, you should think about consolidating that into the sewer fund on the financial statements. You can still track it internally on your end so that you're able to extract that easily. But for financial statement purposes, it gives a better perception as to what funds you have available for future projects or equipment replacement. So I would just recommend that you guys maybe consider that for the future. I'm not saying you have to. It's been like this for a really long time, but it gives I think a more accurate representation of what is available, if that makes any sense. Okay, so that is the supplement. So then we're going to go to the financial statements. So I apologize if some of this is redundant. So if you go to page 3 of the financial statements, I'll wait for you.
Thanks. This one, right? Okay.
So that is, so you see the opinion section. So when I was talking about earlier about those misstatements in the governance letter, right now you got an unmodified opinion, which means it's a clean opinion. That's the opinion that you strive for. And so if those adjustments that were in the governance letter weren't made, then this would change to a modified opinion. And depending on which ones were changed, which part of the financials would be modified. So all of those were corrected. So you have an unmodified opinion, which is a clean opinion, which is good. Okay, so then we need to go to page 58.
Okay. Hang on.
Nope, I will. It's the general fund budget versus actual.
Okay. But it's 58 of the document.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll get there. Getting close. 657. Okay, here's 58.
Okay. So on this page, this is the general fund budget versus actual. And then on this page specifically, it analyzes the revenues. So there was nothing that really stood out as a budget variance except for reimbursements, which is a hard area to budget for, but the amount was very consistent with the prior year. So I think it's just, it's hard to budget for that type of revenue stream because you don't know what you're going to get. So nothing concerning. I just wanted to point it out, but it's very consistent with the 2018 amount, so nothing seems unusual.
And if I could just jump in really quick, reimbursements is just the code. There's a lot of things that get built in and used this code for. A couple of examples for the council could be our Beltrami Electric Cooperative, what do you want to call that? Our cooperative check that we get one from the co-op. Most of you get it as a resident. We also get one from Paul Bunyan because they're all cooperatives. So those would be built in as a into that code. So that's an example of what would get coded. And that's hard, like Ashley stated, it's very hard to budget for something like that because you don't know what it's going to give you at any given time in the year. Would that be accurate, Ashley?
Yeah, and it's probably better to under budget so that you don't overspend. There's not money you think is coming in that actually doesn't. So to be over budget in a revenue source is not a bad thing, in my opinion, I guess.
Okay.
So then we need to go to page 59 shows the general government. So that's like the mayor and the council, the administration, planning and zoning and governmental buildings, I guess is the last one.
Yep.
There's nothing that really stands out as a big budget variance. I mean, you're relatively close to the prior year and you're within a couple $1,000s of budget. So there's nothing concerning and nothing I was going to bring up on that page. Page 60 is public safety, and then it's the start of street and highways. The only thing, or the one thing that stood out in the law enforcement section is the capital outlay, which didn't have a budget, but it was for the squad car, which was a known need. So that's nothing concerning. I just thought I would note it because it's just is what causes the to look like there's a bigger variance, and it's just that. And if I remember correctly, I think you kind of ordered one in 18, but then it didn't work out, and then you had to purchase one in 19. So it could have been just a timing of budget as well.
Sure.
So that's just what that was. In the fire section, the main variance was in materials and supplies. And that was, when I looked at the detail of what was grouped in there on the financial statement, it was due to the code uniforms. And there was 4 sets of gear there. So I'm guessing when you guys do the budget, it's kind of hard to know how much they're going to need. And I mean, it's not a huge variance. I mean, but it was the biggest one that kind of stood out in that area. So I just thought I would note it. And we looked at the expenses for that, and it was all reasonable. So I think it was just knowing whether you were going to need to order it or not. So then going down to the street maintenance section, overall, in this little section, the variance isn't big. It's just categorical wise. There's a little bit of variances. So like you were under budget in the materials and supplies, but then you were over budget in the purchase services. And the in the purchase services, it had to do with engineering fees. And that was related to the Croswell Avenue improvements, is what I could see on my end, is why it was over budget. So I don't, but it was offset with materials and supplies, so it's not a big issue. And then if you look at capital outlay being under budget, but the debt service being over budget, it's just because that that lease for the pickup, I think it is, that was it's just reclassed for financial statement purposes into the debt service. So the principal payment and the interest payment show separately, and it was just budgeted for in the capital outlay section. So, and maybe in the future I can talk to Christina so that it presents it better, because I know that that's what it was for. So maybe we can move the budget to reflect that, because that's what it was related directly to. But I didn't want to change any of your budget numbers for presentation wise. It's just an audit entry to show it differently. So that's all that was. So, I mean, overall, the variance isn't big. They just kind of offset each other. And then on page 61, it just finishes off the streets with the street lighting. That was right on budget. Culture and rec, there wasn't, I mean, personal services was a little bit over budget, but not too bad. The library was right on budget except for capital outlay. I don't remember what that was for, but
that was the air conditioner.
oh, okay, yeah. And so nothing concerning there. The variances were pretty small. So when you look at the total expenditures and how it's over budget by 75,000, well, 50 some of that was just for the squad car. So you were very close to budget overall. And then, yeah. So that was the main variances that I wanted to point out. If you have any questions, feel free to have me expand upon it, or I can look it up later too. Okay. So next I want to go through the cash flow statements for all the enterprise funds. So page 83, Christina, for the water fund. So this might be a little bit redundant because that supplement kind of gives you a visual of the cash flow statement. And this is just kind of, this is the actual statement itself. So we can kind of go through it, and I apologize if it's redundant. Okay, are you ready to go? Yep, okay.
Yep, I gotcha.
So overall cash went up in the water fund. You know, there's a slight decrease, you know, in the operation activities, but really that has to do with the timing of accounts payable. So last year in 2018, accounts payable it went up about 10 grand. So then in 19, you pay those bills. And then this year, accounts payable is down 18 grand or 8,000. So you paid more of current year bills in current year. So that's just a timing thing. So it kind of, it's hard to, because some of this is not, this is just actually pure cash that went out and in. So that, I mean, you still have a very healthy positive cash flow for operations. Just the swing from current year to prior year was mainly due to the timing of when the bills were actually paid. And expenses increased as well, but so did, I think the revenues were fairly flat, but it wasn't anything significant. And then if you go down to the cash flows from capital and relating financing, that's your debt payments for any capital related projects or whatever. So if you have debt, or you have bond proceeds or grant proceeds or special assessments, and then all your purchases of equipment and stuff like that, that's in this section. And the only reason that has a negative cash flow is that's the debt section. But overall, you had an increase of almost $17,000 for the water fund. Okay, I'll go to the next one. Then the sewer fund, it's on page 87. I'm just gonna. So there was a decrease this year of about 45 grand. And another part of that is just the timing of accounts payable itself, because last year accounts payable was up 13 grand. This year it's down 13 grand. So that's a $26,000 swing, just accounts payable and the timing of when you actually paid the bills versus the prior year. So nothing too concerning there. You get, operating expenses went up a little bit, but overall, there was not much concern there. It's just the timing of when the bills were actually paid. And then if you go down to the capital and related financing activities section, that is mainly, so it has a negative 102,000, and last year it was like 12,000. That's mainly that early payback that we talked about earlier for that 2017 disposal system note. That's the main reason for such a large decrease in that section, which is not going to be a reoccurring thing. So your cash went down almost 96,000, but then, there again, it was $100,000 was for that debt, but nothing concerning there. Then we'll go to the golf course. So go to page 90 first, because this is the income statement. And I just want to show you. So if you see right in the middle of the page where it shows the operating expenses, those are the categories that I'm referring to. So you can, and it has the comparative. So like if you look at the personnel services and look from prior to current year, that's quite a bit of a swing. But you knew that because you gave specific raises, and there was a planned thing and you needed to do it. But I like the comparative because it shows budget as well. So it kind of gives you a clear picture of like, okay, what did we budget for and what happened last year? So I like to use these back statements for the comparative stuff. Is there anything else you want me to expand upon for the operating expenses?
Only if the council has a question, I would say at this point, Ashley, on this particular page.
Yeah, and if you have a more specific question after this is over, feel free to email me and I'll get back to you. So if you have a very specific question, or you can ask Christina, and if Christina wants to, if she can't figure it out or she just wants to run it by me, feel free, because I'll answer any questions that you have. So then the next page, on page 91, this is the cash flow statement for golf. So you can see that the operating activities went down about $22,000, and that a big part of that was the personnel services, but that's partially offset by the GASB. There's a GASB 68 or whatever, which is this net pension liability, and there's adjustments, the net pension liability and the deferrals, and some of those expense adjustments, they're running through the income statement, but they're not necessarily cash. So that's why it's a little bit different. Like if you look at the income statement, you're like, well, expenses went up more than this, but it also has to do with those other adjustments that it's offsetting it. So, but the main reason why the operating activities decreased was the increase in wages. And then the non-capital financing activities. So if you see the interfund financing, that's the change in the amount of cash that the golf course is borrowing from the liquor store. So the negative cash got almost $29,000 larger this year. So that's what that figure represents. And then that transfer from the liquor store to help pay some of the debt.
And it's important for the council to understand that that's not actual money that got transferred to that 613 fund. It's just that that is what, for state auditing reporting, we are stating that the liquor store's cash balances are covering that negative debt. Would that be a fair way to say it, Ashley?
Yes,
So I
so
can understand.
it's
It's
like
not
an
actually moving into that fund. It's just covering that negative.
Yep, because you can't show, so if you want a gap audit, you can't show a negative cash unless total cash overall is negative,
Right,
because,
for the whole city.
correct.
Right.
So we have to show the cash is zero, but it's borrowing, in a sense, borrowing that from somewhere. They're paying their bills from somewhere.
Right.
And that's where we're assuming it's coming from, is the liquor fund, because they help finance other things. So that's where that's coming from. The cash actually didn't move, but for financial statement purposes, we have to show it that way because it's
Right.
coming from somewhere, because you obviously have cash. And that is really all I have for about the golf course. And then page 94 is the liquor store. So cash from operations increased like 10 grand. That's very consistent. There's the non-capital financing activities so it's a negative, that increased about 10 grand. Well, that correlates with the extra $10,000 you transferred to the golf course to help pay the debt. So nothing concerning there. The cash flows from capital and related financing, it's a big decrease because last year about $50,000 was for the parking lot. Yeah, so you didn't have that this year, so that's why that section is less negative. So yet overall, you had a cash increase of almost $42,000. So that's great. So then on page 95 is the Minnesota legal compliance letter. So these are specific statutes that we're required to test from the state auditor requires us to test it. And there was no findings during the year. We didn't see anything that would be that you didn't fail to follow any of the provisions that we had to test. So that's great. On page 96 is the governance, or what we call the yellow book letter. It's since you have the deed and PFA grant and loan stuff, they require a yellow book audit, which is just a little bit more regulatory based. So we have to do a little bit more compliance testing. So that's what this letter is. And we didn't have any findings except for the two that are reoccurring every year. That's on it starts on page 97, but 98 is where they're listed. They're significant deficiencies. So that's the lowest tier that we have to report. So it's just, we prepare the financial statements as auditors, we're preparing the financial statements. And that's a weakness in internal control that we have to report. You're fully aware of that. For a city the size of Blackduck, it probably wouldn't be cash effective to hire an outside source to draft your financial statements and then us audit it. So that's all that this finding is stating it's the same finding as last year. And then on page 99, that is the segregation of accounting duties. So with the limited amount of staff, you just don't have enough people to break up the processes enough to have internal controls that could be relied on. I mean, you mainly have two people doing the receiving and the paying and in the accounting function portion. And there's, I mean, you need to have a minimum of 3 and a lot of times more than that, and you have to structure it properly. So for a city your size, this is not a concerning thing. This is the same finding as last year. Nothing that is concerning on our end. We just have to report it. And that's all I had to discuss. Does anyone have any questions right off hand? And
If
again,
you're going
if
to
you
give
have
Blackduck
questions
a-
later, just let me know. Go ahead, sorry.
If you were going to give Blackduck a grade, what would it be?
I'll give you an A because I thought you did. I love working on this audit. I mean, Christina is very easy to work with. I mean, we have a lot of deep discussions about things. It's not that I don't question what she's doing, and she has questions for me as well. I think that we have a very good working relationship. I enjoy coming to this audit every year, so I would give you an A, but
Well, no, that's good to hear. I just wanted to make sure everybody else out there heard that too.
okay.
Thank you, Max.
Don't break your arm patting yourself on the back now.
Not double jointed. We're fine.
Does anybody else have any questions for Ashley?
I don't have anything, thank you.
Okay, well, thank you
All right.
very much. Have a great rest of your meeting.
Thanks for taking care of that for us, Ashley.
No
Thank you,
problem.
Ashley.
All right, so
I need to get the agenda back to where I need it to be. So give me
okay.
1 second if you could. I'm gonna do this again. Nope. Each time I think I want to do split, it doesn't want to do it. Okay. Well, I guess I'm going back here. So we're at Public Works.
Yeah, we're at Public Works.
Yep. So
Do we want Mike to talk a little first about anything, or what it is 7.1 is Mike, Public Works, and then we got A for Woodsett.
Can I ask Christina a quick question? I'm sorry. When we're viewing this, is there a way for Christina to shrink the document center where we don't have to see all the councils because I can only see about half of what is on the sheet.
of
Just a question.
of the agenda, Shonda.
Yeah. So when you're looking at your screen, when I'm looking at your screen, I don't know if anyone else, but I can see all of the council agendas, items on the left-hand side. If we could make that smaller, maybe the whole sheet would show up. I don't know. Just a quick question.
That's fine. If Rita will give me a chance, I might be able to do it again. I'm having a hard time with both pages open, and I don't want to lose everybody.
Not a big deal. Not a big deal. Just
Let's
quick
try
question.
this and see if this helps a little better in this format. Does that help?
Not really. It's okay. It's fine. We'll make it work.
Sorry.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are you, is she having a problem with the, does she see the counselors on here? Or is that what she's talking about, the pictures or the document? Because she has
Rudy,
to.
what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is the pictures are on the right-hand side of the screen. What we're talking about is in the middle, and then the left-hand side of the screen. So a lot of what's being discussed is covered by the pictures of the people who were on the meeting. That's all I was saying.
I
Not a big
understand.
deal though.
Shonda, you might be able to grab that window and move it over yourself on your own monitor. If you put your cursor up at the top above Rudy and click on it, try to drag it over to the other side of the screen.
Or on the bottom.
It says no. It's fine. We're okay.
Okay.
All right. Bye.
All right. Mike?
Let's just go ahead and we'll start out, and I'll defer to Mark and Kurt to go over the GIS stuff a little bit that we've been talking about, and then I can pop back in afterward.
Sounds good. Is Mark on as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, he is.
So we talked about this last fall, starting to build a database for Mike, starting with sewer and water. There's a proposal now to do that this spring. It's divided into kind of 3 tasks. The initial first task is just collecting the data with survey equipment, shooting all the manholes, valves, and so forth. We discussed a little bit with Mike that to save our time, the city can spend some time before we're on site to locate, especially curb stops are something that tends to take a while to find, so that we can do that more efficiently. The number on the proposal, we hope we can do it quicker than that, especially if the city has located a lot of those things. So we're just basically moving down the block shooting things and not spending a lot of time looking. The second phase is taking that data and starting to draw it up. The GIS group, Mark's group, would do that. Brandon would be involved a little bit working with the city, kind of to connect the dots. For example, you've got with water infrastructure, you've got valves, hydrants, and that types of things, but you kind of got to know how things lay to maybe how those particular elements connect to one another. So that's kind of a combined effort with Brandon and Mike, and then the GIS group drawing that base map. And then I'll let Mark talk a little bit about what that third phase includes.
Yeah, can everyone hear me here?
Yep.
The third phase, okay, the third phase, that is putting it together what we had talked about last year of implementing a cloud-based server so you can have your GIS, whether you're at your computers, at home, at the office, or out in the field, cell phones, any mobile device. And what that allows you to do is actually have this data right with you, including the blue dot for the GPS, and you can walk out and find it. It allows you to add data to each of these features. If you had a certain line, a pipe, or let's just say a point, a lift station was going down, you can actually put notes within there, comments by the person who's out in the field, and edit it. And there's dashboards that'll be able to show, kind of what summarizing of what's taking place. Remember we did talk last year that you could have different maps, and one of those would have been for the fire chief, or anybody who you want to have be a member of this site as a user. They could then take a look at all the fire hydrants, and you could see locations where you are compared to where the nearest fire hydrant would be. So it will be phase 2, drawing up and putting it into the GIS system. Then after that, it will be phase 3 is really embedding all that into that upline, that up to that cloud-based server, map server, and then going and also including training. So anybody, normally it's on site, we'd head up there and take you out, and let's just hope that that's the case at some point, but otherwise we just do it remotely. That's what we've been doing right now with a lot of other cities and organizations. Then we'll just walk them through and you'll be up and running. Any questions on any of those pieces or some of the stuff, the previous slide that Christine had pulled up with the GIS in general?
So once this is all up and running, then there's a monthly charge for it? Is that what I'm understanding?
Nope. The billing method is just hourly expenses and monthly. That's just how Woodset, that's kind of our standard, just how we're running bills. Up above there, you have 3 phases, and those are the Woodset. So each one of those are the Woodset fees. Then the bottom, you'll see that's Arcgis online subscription. And this is the big thing that we talked about last year, where it is, you're purchasing the software from Esri. ESRI is the world leader of, it's like the Microsoft Office for, OfficeWorks. That's the GIS software. And what they've done is they've taken this and basically said, okay, you buy it by the user. And you have to have one administrator. That's $500. And these are annual subscriptions. But this is yours. So it's not ours. It's nobody else's. In fact, I just got off the phone on Thursday with a place down in the cities where they had a competing firm that ran their own GIS system, and they now are putting out an RFP trying to get the city wants their own system because now they've had some issues with the engineering firm and they are having trouble getting their data and stuff like that. Our point is you guys should own this. This is your site, your data. It should be developed for you guys. So on that Arcgis online subscriptions, you'll see the creator license or the site administrator. That's a $500. You have to have one of those, and that is to begin the service. Then what you have to have is they want the users. And depending on whether you want a field worker, the field worker allows you to edit, collect data out in the field, manipulate the data. That's $350 for the entire year. And then there's a viewer license for $100. So the city of I Falls, the administrator and the mayor, they have a viewer license where they just want to look at stuff, go online, be able to click on it. They can see any of the data. They can move around the map. They can see the different maps. What they can't do is go out in the field and actually survey something or open up the data set and add a comment or add something to the data or move the data around. But where a field worker could. So those are the 3 services you have. I will say this, you don't have to have just Mike have one and Christina have one. You can actually, what we do even in WSN is we have a field worker is the name, first name field, last name worker. And that account gets used by, we have our GIS phone and a actual Trimble GIS unit or GPS unit. And we go out in the field and use that. So there's ways of sharing a user account. So those are your fees. That would be an annual deal. Once you get the site set up and ours is done. Again, once, I want to stress this too, when we do a lot of stuff with planning and zoning and other maps, it takes a little bit to get the data just from line work and points, but get it into a GIS system. Once it's in the system, it is so fast to edit, manipulate, and map and use from here on out. That's it.
Mike, is this something you still feel is absolutely necessary for the city?
100%. The faster it gets here, the better off we are.
Okay.
Actually, with some of the other stuff that we've got going on, we need to do some of this anyways. So it really, it ties in hand with some of the other stuff that we're looking at coming up here for our other improvements. We need to know where these things are, what these things are. So we're going to be looking at something like this anyways. So if we can get out ahead of it, so to speak, even though we're way behind, if we can get after it, the sooner the better. We're going to be sitting better than we are now. That's for sure.
Christina, I thought we already approved to do this.
We met it as a work session item in the fall, Rudy, but it was never approved.
Okay,
Mike and I worked on budgeting some additional money into his water and sewer budget this year to account for some of this, but we were still needing to vote on it.
okay.
Yep,
I know it's been a while since we talked about it, so.
exactly. And that's why I asked Mark and Kurt to come back. So I have a question for Mark.
Go ahead.
If the city's doing a future infrastructure project, how realistically does this, having this system set up this way, does this save us any future engineering money?
We could, that was actually going for Kurt, but yes, some of the acquisition of knowing what's there, there's review. We can jump into some cities. We don't have this data available, and you're going off of old plan records. One city I just worked with, they literally had crayons on a air photo on the wall, and yeah, it basically adds that whole thing of what is the system. It's hard to decide it's hard to also make decisions on CIPs in the future. If you don't know what you have, you can't make the decisions on where you go. So if you're going to go in and take a look at a road and you all of a sudden say, you know what, we've got this many services on this road, you can count them. You just click on the map and you can see how many services are there. And that actually can start dictating costs. Also makes decision-making for the city easier when you start putting in elements of, the more you build the system, over time, for an example, Alexandria wanted to get rid of all 4-inch water mains. And so we put a map together that had all those 4-inch water mains, happened to coincide with one of the streets that the city was about to do an overlay on. And once they found out when you started seeing that the utility wanted to get removed, you're not going to overlay that. It's going to be a reconstruct. You're going to pull up and swap out that water line. So it's a way of saving money big time when you know what's there, especially when you're making decisions on construction going forward.
Yeah, it's a big help for planning and then also estimating. It's much easier to pull that data and create some accurate estimates for replacements with this type of database.
Just to chime back in, guys, right now, like you mentioned with the crayons, that's pretty much where we're sitting with a lot of our mapping in town here. It's either crayon, it's on a napkin, the measurements are off of stuff that's long gone. So that's a lot of the need to go forward with this too, is not having proper mapping at this point.
I can say we're getting a lot of requests right now for this kind of information, especially with COVID and a lot of situations of remote working. It has come to the forefront of, it's a lot of disconnected, and databases are sitting, or files, I should say flat files, or a paper copy is sitting at work, and you have one individual that's 5 miles out of town one way, another individual that's 10 miles the other way, and they just can't make a lot of decisions. Right here, when it's developed and it's put on, Christina, you could pull it up right now on the monitor and be looking at a certain area, and everybody on this call would be able to see exactly what we're talking about and how it affects things. We do that with stormwater. If there's a ponding effect going on, what's taking place in that area, and everyone's on the same page. So allows for a faster decision making, like Kurt has said, but just everyone's on the same page, and you can take a meeting that could normally take 10 minutes of trying to explain it, and when you pop up a map in front of you, everybody's there. Everyone knows what's going on. Any other questions?
Do we need a motion?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do, Max.
Well, then I would move we go ahead with the Widseth GIS services.
Paige, I'll second that motion.
Okay, I have a first and a second. Is there any discussion on this? Any more discussion? Is there any more discussion on this? All right, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, say aye. Rudy, aye.
Paige, aye.
Max, aye.
Jason, aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. So we'll move forward with that then.
And we'll be in contact with city staff on the best plan as far as starting this work. Like I said, the involvement of city staff to pre-mark some of these elements will speed up that process. We'll just work with Mike and Christine on the timing of starting the work. So,
Kurt, I don't know if this would help at all. As far as fire hydrants and whatnot, I know we have on the fire department has the active 911, and we went around and marked every fire hydrant. I don't know if that would help to have that information as far as the coordinates for each fire hydrant.
it wouldn't hurt just in case as a double check that we don't miss something.
So I know myself and two other people went around and marked right on with our phones. We sat there and pin dropped each fire hydrant and then adjusted it to the accurate location. So if it would help, maybe.
Yeah, it would certainly help. Maybe, it's something to compare to just to make sure we didn't miss one. So
sure.
Kurt, just while I have you quick here, do you have a rough time frame on when we would be getting started with doing some of this stuff?
We could probably start survey as early as late next week.
Okay.
But again, it would kind of determine, how much marking ahead of time you want to do and so forth. But I think we have quite a bit of flexibility as starting that, probably with Neil. As it gets into later May, then we'll probably be scheduling out, once we got the go ahead, it might take about a week and a half to 2 weeks to get out there. But as of right now, we probably only need a couple days notice. We can get going on it.
So as of right now, we could maybe start out on valve cans and manholes and things like that while we went ahead and started exposing a bunch of the curb stops and so forth to get those ready for you.
Yep.
Okay, so maybe you and I should touch base a little bit tomorrow and figure out when we want to start then.
Yeah, that sounds good. I'll visit with Garrett a little bit on what Neil's schedule, what he's got in the next 2 weeks. I don't think he's got much filled out yet. And then I'll give you a jingle maybe late morning tomorrow.
Perfect, Kurt. That'll work. Thank you.
Is there anything else for Kurt from anybody? Go ahead, Christina. Well, thanks for coming in, Kurt, or talking and explaining that to us. I think it's going to be a good system to have out there. So thank you, Mark.
It'll be nice. All right. Thank you, guys. Have a good rest of your evening.
Thank you.
Bye, Mark.
Bye. Good night.
All right. Letter B, Mike.
What do we got here? Public Works trucks. Christina, do you want to kind of take over a little bit with the buyout quote on what we have currently, and then maybe we can talk about some of the numbers we have for quotes as far as new vehicles go?
Yeah, I can quickly do that. The council might remember at the work session we had just a couple of weeks ago, we discussed in detail, where the public works pickups are and that they're, the old one really needs to be replaced. So I got a hold of DeLange Landon. They're the public finance corporation that we have our lease for the 2017 truck through. and asked what the buyout would be if the city were going to move forward into turning that 2017 over, getting rid of the 04. 04?
Yeah,
Is that right?
yeah.
And the 04 and looking at getting 2 vehicles. They said, yes, the city absolutely could do that buyout early. And they sent me this buyout schedule for the Silverado. Oops, that's at the top of the page. I'm sorry. We only did have the 2021 payment still left. So this was what the city would be on the hook for this year if we chose to get rid of that 17 and move into possibly 2 vehicles. We'd have to pay this outright this year in order to start that new. And then Mike would need to go through the government pricing rep again for some options. So I think this is doable this year. Mike and I discussed some financing options. We do have, some street materials in our budget. We've already made this year's payment. This could happen this year if we needed to. We'd have to have to budget for new payments in 21 for 2 vehicles if the city chose to go down that route. So the next thing that our step would be is to, like Mike said, discuss options and then see what kind of financing numbers we're going to be looking at if we chose to do that. So Mike has some numbers already that he's asked the government pricing rep down in Hibbing for. I don't know if they're exactly what you're looking for, but it'd probably be a good idea to have a committee meeting to further discuss it too.
Yeah, if sorry to interrupt, but if I could, just before I forget, if I could ask now to have a Public Works Committee meeting sometime this month, that would be probably our best bet here to talk some more about some of this.
Who's all on the Public Works Committee?
You, Jason, myself, and Mike. And given the extension of the shelter in place, we can do it as a Zoom meeting. So as long as there's good times that I can do this for both you and Jason, I can set that up.
I'm fairly flexible, so it's kind of what Jason can do.
Yeah, I'm open all the way up until 4:30.
Okay. How's like a 2 o'clock thing?
It's fine by me, unless it's a Friday.
Okay, so 2 o'clock.
Yeah, no Friday.
And no Fridays.
No Fridays.
Okay. I'll look at mine and Mike's schedule and I'll put something together then in the next week or so, okay?
I do have a question on the buyout. When we purchased that truck, that we purchased it with the snowplow and stuff already on it. Is that buyout including the plow, or do we keep the plow?
We put the plow on after when we did that.
Oh, did we? So we can. It
did not go into the. I don't believe they put the plow on.
Well, I know when we got the truck, it came with the. Well, I thought he bought it all at once, so. Go ahead.
I would have to go back and double look, but I do think that it was all purchased in one. I don't, maybe they didn't install it right away and it had to go back to be installed, but I do think it all came as one package price.
I think Mike's right. I think Bob had to bring it back to have it installed after he picked it up. But he brought it back to Hibbing again to have it installed, I believe.
I guess it would be just nice to know if we actually own the plow or if that has to go back with the truck on the lease, because I mean, that would save us $7,000.
Well, I could be wrong here, but I think once we make this $8,100 payment on the lease, the truck is technically ours then, is it not, Christina?
This is a buyout.
Correct. So it's not that we need to make our last payment and they get the pickup back. We make this payment and the pickup is ours free and clear. So then what we would be doing is we'd be using the value of that pickup now, trading it in to lower the cost of the 2 new pickups.
Okay, I gotcha.
And Christina, do you have that paper I gave you the other day that where we looked up the value just real quick on the current pickup?
I do.
What was that?
34,350.
34,350. So if you took, hold on, sorry guys. If you took that 34,350 minus the payout, oh, sorry. You know, you'd be left with a $26,000 value that would be taken off the price of the combined package of the new pickups.
Right.
Sure.
And just to throw out just some quick numbers, this is from, oh boy, I don't know exactly what month anymore. I've talked to him so many different times, but to give you a quick, just a rundown, I did get prices for Ford, GM, and Dodge on what we would be looking at, the 3/4 ton regular cab long box. Set up a little bit better this time, a little more properly as far as suspension, electrical, and all that goes for having the plow and all that. And if we were to look at the best price, actually, when I was sitting here looking at these, and sorry, I got a bunch of stuff on the desk here. Chevy through Hibbing actually came in at the cheapest number, and that number that I have here, and it may have changed a little since then, but that number I have here is $30,267 per pickup.
Okay.
So a grand total of 60,500 roughly. And then again, if we took that 20,000 off of it right away, you know, which is going to be the worth of the current 4-door, well, then we've already dropped it down to 40,000.
Sure.
And I do have numbers, and we'll talk more at the Public Works Committee. I do have other numbers for plows and all that sort of stuff to go with it too. But just to give you guys a real quick rundown of where it's going to be sitting. And Christina, do you have the original purchase price in front of you on the 4-door?
Lucky.
I was gonna say, she's gonna get used to doing these meetings in her office.
You're never gonna go back. The yellow, well, total due 24,8 something.
Okay.
That sounds about right.
Well, yeah, that's what's on the DMV slip.
That probably doesn't include the plow.
That's why I'm going back to the pink slip from Ranger.
It seems a little low, but again, that's been a few years ago, and
Right.
prices obviously have gone up since then, but
38,619.
there, that sounds a little better. So those
And
payments.
that is with the plow.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 38,619, and that's given us a payment of $8,100 a year. So 38, pretty close to the 40 we were just talking for the pair.
Mhm.
Our payments are probably going to be pretty close to the same as they are right now,
Right.
but we'll have 2 trucks then.
This is good timing for us to have this conversation, because as you guys might remember, we did take a $10,000 deposit out of the Public Works Reserve Fund to start this lease when we did it. So we might as well grab what we have for value and move it now if we can.
Do you want, so do we want to have a work session first, I'm assuming, or do we want to
Let's
approve?
have a Public Works Committee meeting and then we can meet for the whole council at the work session on the 18th. So I'd say if we could do it like maybe the 12th or the 14th. This week is not gonna work for me, but if we could do it maybe next Tuesday or Thursday.
Yeah, that'd be fine, because it's gonna be around 2 o'clock. That should work, yeah.
Jason, will either of those days work better for you?
You said Tuesday to 13th, 14th?
The 12th or the 14th?
Yeah, I'm open either, so it doesn't bother me.
Okay,
But-
I'll work it out and I'll send you guys an invite.
Okay, sounds good.
Sounds
Okay.
good.
It would be nice to keep the value of the plows though. If at all possible.
Currently, and depending on, I guess, the frame setup of the pickups, you know, Chevy, sometimes they'll change the body up a little bit, but the frame mount and stuff will be the same. I know that their new 3/4 tons have changed in appearance, whether the frame has or not. We may be able to just bolt our current plow off of the 4-door pickup up to the new one. If not, the only thing we would really have to do is buy a new mount. We would keep the blade itself, the controls and all that. We would just have to buy a mount for that pickup. The plow that is on the 04 Chevy currently has far exceeded its lifespan. So
That thing's old.
yeah, that one's gonna have to go down the road with the old pickup. I'll just get in it and Fred Flintstone it down the road a ways, and we'll just get rid of that. So yeah, that pickup will be needing a new plow as well, just so that everybody's kind of on the same page with that.
Sounds good. Anything else, Mike?
You know, we really covered a lot of stuff in the work session last month with stuff that I had. Do you guys have any questions, concerns for me on any of this or on anything else in general?
Nope.
Just that we've kept a pretty close eye on Croswell Avenue this year and it seems to be holding up pretty good, so.
Yeah, Croswell, it's still doing well up there. I've been up there almost every day taking a look at it. I know they are going to be coming in and doing some concrete work pretty shortly here. I didn't get up to check today, but I know that once road restrictions were coming off, they were going to start pouring a little sidewalk around the house and stuff there. I did speak with the owner though, and you know, he was more than happy to work with us, and if we really thought that he should hold off, he would. And he, you know, went as far as to offer if the road does go out again and it's because of the trucks that he was having brought in, that he'd be more than willing to, you know, buy some gravel and put down in there and whatever it took. He was more than cooperative when I was up there and spoke with him the other day.
Well, that's good. All right, if there's nothing else for Mike, I guess move on to the liquor store. Do we have Shonda with us still?
I'm still here. I'm on the same page as Mike. I'd like to get maybe a liquor store committee meeting going. We can talk a little bit about the addition, maybe some phases, bringing this out the next couple years. So the first thing that I think that needs to happen is that we need to figure out what we're going to do with our logs in the log walls. There's some damage to the corners, and obviously it's brought into the building. The ends are absorbing moisture. It's causing rot into the building. So I think, you know, we need to figure that out, figure out a plan.
Okay. I'm assuming, Shonda, you'd like everybody down there though.
You mean at the building or
Yeah.
I'm unsure.
I'm sorry. Yeah, would you like to have the meeting down at the liquor store so that we can all see what's going on, or is everybody? Jason and Rudy are on that committee. Are you guys aware of what Shonda's referring to?
I am.
From the photos that was sent by the last meeting, it showed what some of the damage was, but I didn't know it was internal as well.
It might not hurt to try to have it down at the liquor store. There's
Okay.
only 5 of us, 6 of us, so I don't know. Whatever you think.
No, I think that'd be a good idea. Hands-on is always better. We did, when we were shut down, and we did some scrubbing and oiling of the interior walls of the building. We noticed, I am gonna say 25 feet into the building, there was a soft spot in one of the logs. So it's a concern. It's something that needs to be done.
Okay.
So yeah, just work it out and get something set up, Christina, if you would, for her.
Okay. I'll keep that availability in mind, and I'll, Shonda, how about you and I figure that one out around your time? And we'll try to do it while the order is still keeping us closed.
No, that sounds really good. I would like to see liquor store committee to see what we've been doing and the interior of the building, and then us getting a concrete plan on, a timeline of when we're gonna do stuff, and get that kind of figured out. That'd be
Okay.
great.
And if I could just say, I have spoken with our financial advisors from Ellers and at more meetings with Gail Lieberson on funding for the programs on the buildings and the renovations since our work session. I plan to meet with them 1 or 2 more times before the work session. So any feedback that we put together in this liquor store committee meeting will help us too.
I guess my opinion is to, I know that it looks like quite a bit of money, obviously, but I would like to approach what they were talking about in phases, and I think that we can make it more digestible, I guess, if you were going to say that, and that we, meaning you and I, Christina, put some things in the budget knowing that we were going to have to replace some old equipment, that we are going to have to do some structural fixing to the building, and that we could get, the renovation or the addition to a point where it was more acceptable.
Agreed.
Does anybody else have any questions for Shonda at all? I lost Max. Where'd he go? There he is. All right. You don't have anything else, Shonda? I think we're going to move on.
Sounds good. If you don't have anything for me, then I'm going to duck out of the meeting.
All right. Sounds good. Law enforcement?
Don't really have anything new to give you guys today. Business is changing as this COVID issue is going around, and I'm thankful as of so far, everyone's been doing pretty good about staying in. We haven't had a big problem in our local community. Bemidji is having a little bit more concerns with different businesses, but up here we're doing pretty good. So whether you agree or disagree or whatever you stand on it, my job is to follow the governor's orders at this point. So you guys got any questions or anything for me, concerns?
Nope.
Sounds good. That's all I got for
Alright.
now.
Thanks, Jace.
Yep.
Anything from the fire department? How about golf course? Where are we at there?
I had a brief conversation with Jim today and I said, put the pedal to the metal and get everybody on board and get what you can get on so we can open as soon as possible. So,
Okay, yeah, I had a conversation with him also today.
so he's a little overwhelmed, but I told him, I said, everybody's ready to go. Just call him and get him on staff. So we
Yeah.
need to get the place open.
Well, he said he had everybody out there today, did he?
The only person he didn't call in was his new person.
Oh, okay, all right.
And I've talked to Pam, and Pam's gonna work on a plan to get the people that she is pulling in that are return and new to train in the next week. We just have a couple of details we have to work out too.
All right, sounds good. How about the library? How's things going over there?
Unless Max has anything. I know that they reevaluated their situation. They started curbside pickup last week. I believe.
Yeah, it's been going pretty well too. The people are happy for it. They're glad it's open.
Yeah.
Good. It sounds like they're still gonna try to move forward with summertime reading stuff somehow, maybe. Have you heard?
One way or the other, I think Kelly will figure something out for it.
Okay, good. I guess we're pretty much down to you, Christina.
Okay. I don't have a whole lot. I am going to move everybody around and pull this back up. So for those of you that were here when we did this before, sorry, I keep moving everybody. Hope you're not getting seasick. In 2018, they did the Minnesota Investment Fund, which our revolving loan fund dollars came from, had what they called at that time their one-time exception payback to the state, where the cities that had Minnesota Investment Fund monies could take their existing balance of that fund, pay the state 20% of what that fund was worth at a point, and then the remaining monies moved into another fund that had less restrictions that the state has been tying to this money in the past. The city did take an opportunity to do that. That's what created our new revolving loan fund that I represent on our fund balance report every month for you. And they, in 19, announced they were going to do it again. So they're still calling it the one-time exception, even though it's 2 times. And what I've showed you here on these dollar amounts is what I submitted to them on Friday. And the reason I did it on Friday, although last Friday, the May 1st, although the deadline isn't until June 1st, is because in that existing restricted fund from RLF, all but one borrower did not accept or accepted a deferment because of COVID. So I wouldn't be increasing that balance of $85,000 much in the next month. So I sent it in on May 1st instead of June 1st. So I'm just gonna wait for Deed to approve this form and get further instructions. We'd be paying them back this $17,079.10. And then this balance of $68,316 will be able to move into our new revolving loan fund and add to that bigger. We still, of course, will have residual balance coming in because of the current borrowers of those loans and tracking, but that'll give the city more leniency if we have other funds that end up being for retail construction or retail loans in the future. So
Does-
I just wanted
Does
everybody to
that
know.
become
about that.
part of the unrestricted? Is that what you're saying? The unrestricted?
Something, yeah, you
revolving
could
loan
call,
fund?
yes, you could call it an unrestricted fund.
Okay,
So how
If you-
much, I'm sorry, how much do we have left in the restricted fund? For say like the money still coming in that's restricted?
How much for borrowers that's coming in?
Yes.
You've got 4 loans in there, Rudy, so I don't know what their outstanding balance is off the top of my head. I could report to you guys if you wish to see their balances, but I would need to do it without some information in here.
So you're talking about you were just mentioning about the only one borrower didn't take the
The deferment,
deferment, but is that even restricted money there anyway? That's already unrestricted, isn't it?
the one borrower,
Or, yeah, the ones that took the deferment. I mean, is that restricted money still, or?
it is. There's Mac Properties, Nodak, Blackduck Floral and Gifts, and I'm sorry, there was only 3. Yeah,
Okay,
there was one other ones that took the deferral, I'm sorry, but that was in the out of the new fund.
okay, all right.
But still, of those 3, the 2 that accepted it take the majority of the payments we receive, and the one that didn't, their loan is 0% interest, so we're not getting any anything out of that
Sure.
additional except their principal payment. So it really isn't affecting this balance to grow it much more in the next 30 days.
Okay. So you need an approval in order to do this.
I need final approval on this, yes.
I got 2 computers and I keep hitting the wrong button on the wrong computer. Yeah, so I'd need a motion to move forward with this.
Paige, I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion on this? Any discussion? All right, all those in favor, say aye and your name, please. Rudy, aye.
Paige, aye.
Max, aye.
Jason, aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes.
The last thing I have, because it's old business, is after prom. So unless something's happened since the work session, I'm assuming this is going to stay on the agenda.
Please keep it on the agenda. We can table it even tonight again, but their full intention is to have some sort of prom, no matter what. So
Okay.
I've even heard that there's going to be a graduation. Nobody knows time, or I'm pretty sure, I thought it was the 29th was what I had heard, but
Max, are you making a motion to table this till next month?
yes, I am.
Do I have a second?
Paige, I'll second that motion.
All those in favor to table this until next month, say aye. Rudy, aye.
Paige, aye.
Max, aye.
Jason, aye.
All right.
All right. Then moving on, I just have a couple of dates. Our next work session will be 2 weeks from tonight, the 18th. If the governor lifts the stay at home with restrictions, I'll spread you guys out into City Hall and we can have a face-to-face meeting. Yay. Otherwise, your next regular city council meeting will be Monday, June 8th, which is at also will be here, hopefully, cross fingers. And then I put on there just to remind everybody that May 25th is Memorial Day, and that is observed for government entities. City offices will be closed that day. I'll post something on the Facebook page as well as here at City Hall. And unless the council has any questions or concerns or anything for me, that's all I have, Rudy.
Does anybody have anything for Christina? All right. I have nothing to report. Does anybody else have anything to report? Okay. So it looks like got a lot of anniversaries this month. Wow. Ray's been on Public Works now for 21 years. Chris Brown is at 8 years already. Oh, this must be my anniversary month too, it looks like. For 12 years, not 8. Or actually it's 13 years. Leo Gross, 12 years. Andy Tinas, 23 years on the fire. Fletcher Cushon, 13 years. Matt Landis, 13 years. Jim Peasley, 30 years. Wow.
Is it true he's gonna retire?
I have not, it has not been confirmed yet.
Okay. That's a big number.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
No, we really should recognize that.
Yes. And so we got BDC coming up on May 13th. Is that going to be a Zoom meeting, I'm assuming, or
yeah, I haven't sent out an email to any of the development core members yet, but yes, I'll do it again. It was very poorly attended the first time I was. I know that there's some people that just everybody's schedules are so wonky, and not everybody's good at Zoom, myself included, but
yeah, we're getting better.
We'll get it better and we'll try it again.
How did the last chamber meeting go?
You know, I thought it was very well attended. At the end of the meeting, there was a couple people that were really appreciative of having it as a Zoom meeting, because they could actually get here, if you will. But you know, I one of the best things about the chamber meetings is that they actually we go from one restaurant to another restaurant and spread the wealth and keep the commerce going and everything, and we missed that one part of the meeting. But yeah, right now it will be at Restaurant 71. Everything works out right. If I jump down to E, I show you that the city, or I'm sorry, E is different. They are going to do ditch cleanup that night. Paige, ditch cleanup for the chamber.
I'll be there.
Is May 20th at 5:30 at Shamrock Storage. So if anybody wants to help with the 2 miles down 71 corridor to help the chamber clean up their ditches, that would be great. We'll take as many volunteers as possible. Bring your own gloves. And then the Planning Commission, just so you know, I mean, you saw it in the minutes. I had the Planning Commission meeting in April. We did it as a conference call. I mailed them their agenda and their minutes, and there really wasn't a whole lot to discuss. But since the board hasn't met for many months because of this, we didn't meet in March. We met briefly in February. It was good interaction, so I'm glad that they did. Everybody there was still very adamant that we should continue with the citywide cleanup event. Even at that point, we didn't have many people to sign up. And again, I don't have very good positive. We only have about 3 people signed up for this event. So we will be picking some stuff up that Saturday, but it won't be much.
Okay.
Yeah, apparently nobody has anything they need cleaned up. But
Are we gonna keep that slated no matter what? Or are we gonna say that we gotta have X amount of people in order to bring me and the guys in and all that, or what are we gonna do with that?
You know what, Mike, after the planning commission meeting, I had Ernie Tyndall and Kurt Benson that said, I'll come in town and help. So we may not even need you and the guys.
Okay. Well,
I'll keep you posted as it gets closer to the date.
that works for me.
Because my plan was to call all the people that signed up and said, are you still on board? Make sure your stuff is there, blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
All right, motion to adjourn.
I think it's kind of, they stick with the cleanup idea, even if we don't get banner numbers. I mean, we got to start someplace just to keep it moving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Paige, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
This is Jason. I'll second that motion.
All those in favor? Say Rudy, aye.
Paige, aye.
Max, aye.
Jason, aye.
All right, any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Good meeting, guys and girls.
All right. You guys have a great night.
Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.